Sometimes life gives you exactly what you always dreamed of, and in the same instant, pulls the ground out from under your feet. I had just gotten off work when I opened the email on my phone, still sitting in the car, parked in the lot. I worked part-time at a small grocery store in Dayton, Ohio, and I was exhausted. But when I saw the first line, "Congratulations! We're pleased to inform you," my heart almost stopped. I had been accepted to Northwestern. This wasn't just an acceptance, it was proof that all those years of effort, sleepless nights, studying while my half-brother slept in, had been worth it. On the drive home, I kept imagining my mom's face when I told her. She always said my biological dad would be proud of me. I hoped to hear her say that again, this time with tears in her eyes, like the few rare times she spoke about him. When I got home, the TV was blaring like always. My stepdad was sprawled out on the couch, beer can in hand. His son, Eric, was playing video games in the next room. I came in nearly tripping over myself with anticipation. "Mom?" I called from the kitchen. She came in, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What is it, Josh?" she said, half distracted. I took a deep breath and blurted it out. "I did it. I got accepted to Northwestern." For a second, I thought she was going to smile, but she just blinked like she hadn't understood. "Northwestern?" she repeated. "Yes, in Chicago. I'll be able to study there with the partial scholarship and Dad's fund can cover the rest." Before she could say anything, I heard my stepdad's voice from the couch. "You've got to be kidding me, right? Chicago? At that price?" My mom furrowed her brow, confused, shaking her head. "Josh, that's really far. Are you sure?" I felt my chest go cold. I had just shared the biggest accomplishment of my life, and all I got were frowns. "Of course I'm sure. I worked and studied for this. Dad left that money specifically for college." My stepdad leaned forward, giving me a crooked smile. "Or maybe he left it to help the family. You're not the only one around here who needs things." Eric showed up in the doorway laughing. "Yeah, dude. You think you're special just because you got into some fancy school? Real life doesn't work like that around here." I looked at my mom, hoping she'd shut that nonsense down. But she just stood there, still holding the towel, like she didn't know whose side to take. That's when it hit me. This thing I should have been celebrating was about to turn into a war. I stood in the middle of the room, gripping my phone so tightly. Part of me wanted to hurl it at my stepdad just to wipe that smirk off his face. "This isn't about you guys. It's about me. About what Dad wanted," I said, louder than I meant to. He let out a low laugh, the kind that made my skin crawl. "Oh, the perfect daddy, always with that talk. You're a grown man now, kid. Grow up. Stop hiding behind ghosts." My mom twitched like she'd been shocked, but said nothing. She just stood there, towel in hand, eyes darting between us. "Mom, say something," I begged. She took a deep breath, and instead of defending me, she said, "Josh, you know I want the best for you. But if this causes problems here at home, I have to think about the balance of the family too." "Balance? So I'm supposed to give up my future just to keep him comfortable?" Eric burst out laughing from the hallway. "Man, you're so dramatic. Just go to community college, get a whatever degree and be done with it. That's what everyone does. No need to blow a fortune just to feel special." I turned to him. "You don't understand anything, Eric. You've never worked for a thing in your life. Don't compare yourself to me. See, Dad? Genius boy thinks he's better than me." My stepdad slammed his beer can on the coffee table. "That's enough. Nobody in this house is going to fund your delusions of grandeur. That money may have your daddy's name on it, but this house has mine. Got it?" The words echoed in my head. My mom looked at him, then at me, but said nothing. I saw clearly then she had chosen to stay silent. In that moment, I realized I was on my own in this. I went upstairs to my room. I stared at the email again, my eyes blurred with rage and disappointment. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it had turned into a bitter memory. Lying on my bed, with the TV still blaring downstairs and Eric's laughter bleeding through the walls, I thought, if they won't celebrate with me, then I'll fight for this alone. In the days that followed, the news of my acceptance turned into ammo against me at home. I'd wake up to hear my stepdad stomping around the kitchen, talking loudly on speakerphone to someone, always throwing out phrases that felt aimed straight at me. People think they can just burn through money because they got an inheritance. It's total irresponsibility. At Thursday night's dinner, things got blatant. The four of us sat at the table, eating plain spaghetti, my mom's go-to when she wanted to save money. I was trying to eat in silence when he brought it up. "So Josh, thought about it some more? 'Cause this Northwestern talk isn't gonna happen." I looked at him without hiding my disgust. "I already told you. This was my dad's plan. That money is for my education. He dropped his fork on the plate. Education can happen here too. There are plenty of good community colleges. A hell of a lot smarter than running off to Chicago thinking you're some kind of star. Eric, chewing with his mouth open, jumped in mid-bite. Yeah, bro. You should be thanking me. If you go, you'll blow through everything, and then we're the ones left with nothing. You only think about yourself. We? I snapped. That money was never for you, Eric. My dad left it, not yours. He made a wounded face, like I'd said something cruel. Wow, hear that, Dad? He thinks he's better than us just because his real daddy left him a few bucks. My stepdad pointed a finger at me like a judge handing down a sentence. You need to face reality. That fund is under your mother's name. You don't get to make all the decisions. I turned immediately to her, desperate for backup. She held her napkin in her hands, not looking at anyone. Mom, you know what Dad wanted? You read the documents with me when we got them. She sighed, still avoiding my eyes. Josh, I know, but things aren't that simple. Life's expensive now, and maybe it'd be better to look into something closer, cheaper, just until we're in a better place. It felt like I'd been punched in the chest. My own mother, repeating his words like she'd been coached. A better place? I said, my voice cracking with anger. There is no we, Mom. That money's not for Eric, not for his business, not for this house. It's the one thing Dad left for me, and you all want to rip it away. No one replied. Just my stepdad's smug expression, like he'd just won another round. That night, lying in bed, I heard my mom and him arguing in hushed tones downstairs. I didn't catch everything, but I heard bits. He can't go there. It'll ruin us. You have to shut this down. That's when I realized this wasn't just resistance anymore. It was a campaign. They were going to do everything they could to break me before I ever packed a bag. The next day, my mom showed up in my room with a flyer from Dayton Community College. I was sitting on the bed, laptop open to the Northwestern site, browsing courses and student housing options. She knocked lightly but walked in without waiting. Look, Josh, they've just opened a new business program. 2 years and you get your degree. Much more affordable. I stared at the paper in her hand like it was a bad joke. Are you serious right now? After everything? She sat down at the edge of the bed, brushing her hair behind her ear the way she did when she was nervous. I just want you to think logically. You don't know what life in Chicago will be like. You don't know anyone there. At least here. You'll be close to family. Family? I snapped. Who here actually supports me? She didn't answer. She just kept staring at the flyer like it held the magical solution. Later that night at dinner, my stepdad brought it up again, this time more aggressively. He had a folder full of papers on the table, bills and receipts. Look at this, Josh. Power bills, water, the mortgage. Do you really think it's fair to take all that money and blow it on yourself while your mom busts her ass to keep this house running? That money's not for bills. It's not for the mortgage. It's for college. My college. He leaned over the table, face red with anger. You live here. That makes you part of this house. If the house goes down, you go with it. Eric laughed out loud, slouched in his chair with his plate still full. See, bro? If you were really smart, you'd use that money to help. Then you'd show you care. I was shaking with rage, but my voice came out steady. No, I'm not gonna let you steal what my dad left me. The room went silent for a second. My mom placed a hand on my stepdad's arm, maybe to calm him down, but she still didn't say I was right. Her silence hurt more than anything he could have yelled. That night, I lay staring at the ceiling, the TV still blaring downstairs. I felt like a stranger in my own house. The more they talked about family and help, the clearer it became that I was the only one here who didn't have anyone on my side. Things spiraled fast. Every time I brought up Northwestern, it turned into a shouting match. The house felt like a ticking time bomb. One Sunday night, we were all in the living room. I had printed out the documents showing the terms of the fund, the clauses specifying it was for my education. I placed the papers on the coffee table, taking a deep breath before speaking. It's all here. This money is for my college. There's nothing you can do about it. My stepdad picked up the papers and tossed them back onto the table. You forget your mom is the legal guardian of that fund. If she says no, it's no. My mom sat next to him, her hand resting on his knee, like a gesture of support. Josh, please, don't turn this into a war. I need to keep my marriage stable. You don't understand how important that is. I almost laughed from sheer nerves. So I'm supposed to give up my life to keep your marriage stable? She looked away. That's when Eric came down the stairs, wearing that irritating smile. You know what it looks like to me? That you're being selfish. You've got all this money waiting for you, and instead of helping the house, you're gonna blow it all on yourself. What do we get out of it? I turned to him, my voice sharper than I intended. It's not we, Eric. This fund isn't yours. It never was. You just want a freeload, like always. He made a fake offended face, throwing his hands up. Look at that, Dad. Mr. Chicago thinks everyone's a parasite, like he's gonna save the world just because he's going to college out of state. My stepdad slammed his hand on the table. Enough, Josh. If you keep up with this insanity, I swear I'll find a way to block that money. You'll end up going nowhere. My whole body trembled, but I didn't lower my eyes. You don't have that power, and if you try, I'll get a lawyer. Dad set everything up because he knew someone would try this. For a moment, the silence was total, only the TV murmuring in the background. My stepdad stared at me with a look that measured how far I'd go. Then he took a slow drink of his beer and said, in a tone too calm to be real, "You really think you're gonna win, kid? This world doesn't work on, but my daddy said, you live under my roof, and while you do, you follow my rules." I swallowed hard but didn't back down. Then I'll leave. If I have to, I'll go. But you're not stealing what's mine. My mom's eyes widened. Josh, don't say that. You have nowhere to go. You don't know how to support yourself. You have no idea what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying, I replied. If I stay here, I'll spend the rest of my life being controlled. Eric snorted, laughing while scrolling on his phone. You think you're so brave, huh? Bet you don't even know how to cook. You'll starve to death in Chicago in a week. Better starve trying than live like you, sleeping till noon and asking for money for everything. He scowled and stood up, moving toward me like he wanted to intimidate me. Say that again, genius. Just say it. My stepdad raised his hand, stopping him. Sit down, Eric. Don't waste energy on someone already lost. That made me even angrier. Lost? Lost is needing to control everyone around you because you're scared to look in the mirror and see you've achieved nothing. The silence that followed was heavy. My mom shut her eyes like she'd been slapped. My stepdad turned red, crushing the beer can in his hand. For a second, I thought he'd stand up and hit me, but he just said, "You're gonna regret those words." I stood there, heart pounding, unblinking. There was no going back now. From that moment, I'd decided I was going to fight for what was mine, no matter what. After that night, I knew I couldn't depend on talking to my mom or any hint of decency from my stepdad. So I started looking for help elsewhere. I spent more time at my friend Ryan's house. We'd known each other since we were kids. He and his mom listened to me vent one whole evening, sitting in their kitchen, sipping cheap coffee from a machine. Man, you can't let this slide, Ryan said. That fund is yours. Your dad left it for you. They've got no right to touch it. His mom, Donna, shook her head. I'm sure your father set it up exactly because he knew you might need it one day. Find a lawyer, even if it's just to understand your rights. It was the first time in weeks I'd felt truly heard. I left with a contact for a family lawyer Donna knew. The following week, I sat in his office, a small but tidy place full of worn legal books. I told him everything from start to finish. He listened without interrupting, taking slow notes. When I was done, he adjusted his glasses and said, "If the documents are as you described, the fund is protected. Your mother may be the trustee, but she can't divert the money to another purpose without violating your father's legal intent. You've got a solid case." I almost cried with relief right there. I left with copies, instructions, and the feeling that I finally had a weapon in my hand. That night, I came home and decided to face them head on. I waited until everyone was in the living room. My stepdad watching TV, Eric sprawled on the floor with his video game, my mom folding laundry on the couch. I placed the folder of documents on the coffee table. I went to a lawyer, and here's proof this money is exclusively for my college. If you try to touch it, things will get ugly for you. Eric dropped his controller, laughing like I just told a joke. Oh, wow, the rebel. So now you're a lawyer too? My stepdad picked up the papers, glanced at them, and tossed them to the floor. You think paper scares anyone here? You've got no clue how this world works. Maybe you'll win some little court fight, but you'll lose everything in the process. I didn't flinch. I'd rather spend every cent fighting than watch you steal what's not yours. Josh, please, son. You don't understand. If you go down this path, you'll destroy our family. I can't lose my marriage over this. My chest burned with anger. So my future's worth less than your marriage? She stayed silent, staring at the papers scattered on the floor. Eric was the first to break the silence, his voice dripping with mockery. Told you, Dad. He only thinks about himself, doesn't even care about his own mom anymore. My stepdad spoke in a low but threatening voice. If you want a war, you'll get one. But don't expect a plate of food at this table when you come back with your face smashed. I looked him straight in the eye and said, I won't be needing this table for much longer. After that conversation in the living room, the house turned into a minefield. I barely left my room, only coming downstairs for food when I was sure no one else was around. Even then, they surrounded me from all sides. One night, my mom knocked on my bedroom door. She came in slowly, sat on the edge of the bed, and spoke in a whisper, like she didn't want my stepdad to hear. Josh, you don't understand. If you keep pushing this, he'll ruin you, and I won't be able to stop him. You're disrespecting him. He's not going to let this slide. He can't do anything, Mom. I got legal help. The fund is my right. Dad planned it that way. You think lawyers solve everything? What happens when you don't have a home to come back to? When everyone turns their back on you? It didn't feel like concern. It felt like blackmail dressed up as worry. So you're saying you'd rather stand by him even knowing what Dad wanted? I have to keep my marriage, Josh. I can't lose this. 2 days later, everything exploded. I came down the stairs with my backpack slung over my shoulder, ready to study at Ryan's place. My stepdad was in the living room with a stack of bills on the table. He looked up and said, So you think you can back us into a corner with your little lawyer stunt? Well, here's the deal. As long as you live under this roof, I can freeze that money. Your mom's already said she's with me. You can't. And if you try, I'll take it to court. I've already got everything documented. He stepped toward me, his face flushed, jabbing a finger in my face. You're nothing without this house. Just an ungrateful little punk who thinks a degree is all it takes to beat the world. You'll crash and come crawling back. I'd rather crawl alone than live here with my head down. That's when my mom came running from the kitchen, stepping between us. Enough! You two are going to kill each other! She grabbed his arm, trying to hold him back. But the next thing she said hit me harder than any of his threats. Josh, please, just apologize. Just say sorry to him. I can't take this fight anymore. My stepdad added, You're tearing this family apart, Josh. If you had 1 ounce of decency, you'd hand over the money and build a life here. But no, the little boy thinks he's better than everyone. It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what I achieved. My mom was never going to take my side. I went upstairs and shoved clothes into my bag without bothering to fold them. I grabbed my laptop, the documents, and the photo of my dad from my nightstand. Every item I packed made the lump in my throat tighten, but also took a weight off my back. When I came downstairs, all 3 of them were still in the living room. My mom looked at me like I was committing a crime, watching me leave without saying a word. My stepdad crossed his arms, wearing that smug smile like he'd already won. Go ahead, kid. Go find out how cruel the world really is. But don't expect to come running back. That door's gonna be shut. I slung the bag over my shoulder, took a deep breath, and replied, That door's been shut for a long time. And I walked out. I didn't look back. I only heard Eric laughing behind me. In Ryan's car, parked at the corner, I collapsed into the passenger seat and broke down. Not from regret, but from relief. For the first time, I was free, even if I had no idea what would come next. The first weeks away from home were a mix of freedom and fear. I was crashing on Ryan's couch. It wasn't comfortable, but it was peaceful. No one yelling at me, no one calling me selfish. I could breathe, but the truce didn't last long. One night my phone rang. My mom's name lit up the screen. I answered even though I knew I probably shouldn't. Josh, you need to stop this. Her voice was shaking. Your stepdad is saying he's going to leave. I can't lose my marriage over this fight. Just apologize to him. I took a deep breath. Mom, you're asking me to humiliate myself. I'm not going to apologize for standing up for what's mine. So you're just going to leave me alone? Is that it? No, Mom. I didn't leave you. You left me the moment you chose him over me. Her silence was heavy. Then she hung up. When I got to Chicago, it felt like landing on another planet. I had never lived in a city that big. For a moment, I thought, how the hell is a kid from Dayton supposed to survive here? The first few months were brutal. I shared a dorm room with a guy who was almost never around. Lucky for me. I worked part-time at a coffee shop near campus, waking up early to open the store, making lattes behind the machine while trying to memorize the price list of drinks I could never afford back in Ohio. Some nights, dinner was just a pack of instant noodles from the corner store. But no matter how tired I was, I felt a peace I'd never known before. No shouting. No one telling me I was ungrateful. No one trying to guilt me into giving up my future. Then, one Sunday night, my phone buzzed on my dorm desk. My mom's number again, after months of silence. I hesitated, then finally swiped to answer. Hi. On the other end, silence for a few seconds. I could hear her breathing. Then her voice came, firm, cold. Josh, I'll be direct. If you won't help, don't bother contacting me again. I swallowed hard. She didn't even ask how I was. Help how? Your stepdad is trying to start a new business, an opportunity that could change our lives. But we need money. You can help. The word help came out like a demand, not a request. My chest burned. That money's not for any business. You know that, Mom. She let out a deep sigh, her voice sharpening. You don't get it. He knows what's best for this family. I trust him. And you're being exactly what he said. Selfish. You abandoned your family for a diploma that won't get you anywhere. Each word was a blade. So you're really choosing him over me? I'll always choose what keeps this family standing. If you can't see that, then don't call. Don't show up. Forget I'm your mother. The line went silent for a moment, then dropped. I sat staring at the phone, my hands trembling. I didn't cry. I just felt a weight on my chest, and the certainty that the bridge had finally burned down for good. Slowly, I built a routine, studying late into the night, sending out resumes for internships, going out now and then with classmates. It wasn't a luxurious life, but it was freedom. As for my mom, she never called again, never asked how I was doing. The first few months were tough. Sometimes I missed her, but every time I thought about it, I remembered her words telling me that if I didn't help, I shouldn't come back. I remembered how she kept saying he knew what was best, as if my future didn't matter as long as her marriage survived. Gradually, contact faded away completely. Years passed. I didn't live in the dorm anymore. I managed to rent a small studio near campus, furnished with secondhand pieces from thrift shops and a scratched-up desk where I spent countless nights studying. The rent swallowed most of my internship paycheck, but I had something no one could take from me: independence. That summer, I took a few days to visit Ryan back in Ohio, the friend who'd given me shelter when my world flipped upside down. We spent the weekend rehashing old jokes, eating cheap pizza, and marveling at how everything had changed in such a short time. One afternoon, while walking through the local mall, I ran into Lucas, my cousin, my mom's sister's son. He recognized me first and walked over, a bit awkward. After a quick hug and some small talk, he leaned in, lowering his voice like he didn't want anyone to hear. Josh, there's something you should know. I frowned. What is it? He looked around, then let out a breath like he was bracing for impact. Your mom. She got kicked out of the house. Your stepdad threw her out. I froze right there in the middle of the mall, heart thudding. I overheard her telling my mom. She said she found out he only stayed with her because of your inheritance, that he never actually wanted to work, that his businesses always failed. He'd make her handle everything. And when she asked him for help, he told her, flat out, that he'd only stuck around because of the money you wouldn't give up. Said he already had the house and she was supposed to bring in the rest so he could start his business. When she didn't, he told her he wasn't going to support her anymore. I just stood there trying to process every word. Everything I had suspected but never heard out loud was now in front of me, spoken by someone else. I looked at Lucas. You said kicked out? Was all I could manage. He nodded. That's what she told my mom. She said she had nowhere to go, said she regretted trusting him, but my mom told her she couldn't help. She can barely pay her own bills. He sighed. She's kind of lost, I guess. It was like all the puzzle pieces I'd carried around in my head finally snapped into place. My mom had told him about the fund back when we were still renting. That meant he'd had his eyes on the money from the very beginning. It hadn't been paranoia. It had been real. So, he said all that to her face? I asked. Yeah. Told her straight up that he only stayed because of the fund. Said she was useless to him now. Even said he'd rather stick with Eric. For a moment, I felt like laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was bitter, absurd. All that time, all those arguments, all the guilt I carried thinking maybe I was the one tearing the family apart. And in the end, it had been exactly the opposite. He never wanted a family. He wanted money. And her? I asked, almost whispering. How is she? Not good, but you know how she is. Still trying to defend him in some ways. Says she believed in his love, thought he was different. I stood still, a storm of anger and pity churning inside me. Anger that she had picked him over her own son. Pity that she was now paying the price for a choice I always knew would blow up. I took a deep breath and looked at Lucas. Thanks for telling me. Really? My voice came out flat, but honest. He nodded, a little awkward. I just thought you deserved to know. We said goodbye right there in the middle of the mall. I walked off into the crowd, not quite sure what to feel. Later, in the car on the way back to Ryan's house, part of me wanted to grab my phone and call her, ask if it was true, hear it from her own lips. But another part, louder, clearer, told me there was no need. I already knew the truth. I'd always known. In that moment, something settled in me. It wasn't just that I'd lost my mother. It was that maybe I never truly had her in the first place. The following years in Chicago passed in a blur of sweat, sleepless nights, and quiet victories only I noticed. Every internship I landed, every high grade on a brutal exam, every bill I managed to pay with my own salary, each one was silent proof that I'd made the right choice. In my final year, I secured a trainee position at a consulting firm I'd only ever read about in magazines. It gave me stability, a sense of direction. Graduation came on a bright June day, a mix of triumph and emptiness. As I walked across the stage, diploma in sight, I couldn't help scanning the audience chairs. So many families together, parents hugging their kids, moms crying. My chair was empty, but not entirely. Way in the back, Ryan. Always Ryan. In a simple suit, smiling, waving like he was silently saying, "I knew you'd make it." I invited Ryan because leaving him out wouldn't make sense. My dad always liked him. When we were kids, he'd drive us to the field behind the school to play soccer, sometimes bought us ice cream afterward. Small moments, but unforgettable. When my dad died, Ryan cried almost as hard as I did. Since then, he'd become more than a friend. He was like a brother. After the ceremony, we went out to eat at a modest restaurant. We laughed, reminisced about dumb things we did as kids, and talked about how surreal it felt to finally get here. But there was a weight behind Ryan's eyes, like something he'd been carrying for a long time. Later that evening, he came up to see my apartment. I showed him around the tiny studio, the thrifted furniture, the secondhand desk where I'd spent so many nights cramming. He nodded in quiet approval until finally he said he had to grab something from his bag and would be right back. I went into my room and found myself staring at the shelf where my dad's photo sat. I picked up the frame and whispered, "I did it, Dad. I made it here." My voice broke, but I smiled. I wish you could have seen it. Then came a knock at the door. Ryan walked in, holding a yellowed envelope. "Josh, there's something I've been holding on to for a long time." He took a breath like the envelope weighed 50 pounds. "Your dad gave this to me shortly before he passed. He said, 'Ryan, only give this to Josh when he graduates. Not before.'" I froze. My fingers trembled as I took it. My name was written in his handwriting, a script I hadn't seen since I was a kid. I opened it slowly, almost afraid. There were only a few lines, but each one felt like it traveled through time to find me. "Josh, if you're reading this, it means you fulfilled your destiny. I knew you'd get there. The money I left behind wasn't a gift. It was a tool, the chance to choose your own life. Never settle for less than you deserve, and never bow to those who try to shrink you. If life gets heavy, remember this. I always believed in you. With love, Dad." The tears came before I could stop them. I looked over at Ryan, who was just as emotional as I was. He sat beside me and we stayed there in silence, like those late nights when everything had felt impossible. Only now, things were different. There was no more loss, only victory. I folded the letter and placed it beside the photo on the shelf. For the first time, I felt like I'd closed a chapter. The diploma on the desk, my best friend by my side, and my dad's voice reaching me even after all these years. I wasn't alone. I never had been. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the anger melt into something steadier. Conviction. No one was ever going to write my story for me. The next page would be mine, and mine alone.